Hello, my name is Timon and you're watching right now Zuechel.tv. So, this is my story how I found Christ. I personally grew up in a Christian household, and for me it was always clear that there is a God. But at the age of 12 I came to a point where I thought to myself the Christians are too narrow-minded. The whole Christian thing didn't make so much sense to me, because for me personally it was like that there is more, God could be found in many other ways, and the Christian don't see that. So at the age of 12 I started to smoking pot because I thought to myself that when I smoke pot this would open me more spiritually to the spiritual world. And so then I started to deal with the occult. Things like witchcraft, Reiki and chakra meditation. I was never going like deep in it, but I just did a little research about these topics. I also felt myself very attracted to the Rastafarian. I just did a little research about it and found it sounds really good. Because at this time I thought to myself that I just could pick like the best things out of every religion and make up my own. With 14 I started to experiment with ecstasy, but at this point I also was going again in a Christian camp called Camp Rock. I was there many times when I was younger. So I was going in this camp, but I had all these beliefs, But when I was in this camp, I got really convicted of what they told me, like, yeah, living for Christ, because at this point I believed in Jesus. So then I laid down my life to Jesus and I thought to myself, I will stop now with everything. So I was going home from the camp, but I didn't start to pray. I read a little bit in the Bible, but yeah, I also prayed a little bit, but not, not deep. Just like, yeah, when you go to sleep, just say, oh God, please forgive me my sin and stuff like this. And then I stopped to smoking weed for like 2 weeks, because after 2 weeks I thought to myself, oh, I don't see a lot of change in my life and I think it's okay when I also start again to smoke weed. I even get baptized at this time, but I didn't understand what it means to be baptized. For me it was just like, yeah, that's a Christian thing that you do, and I mean I'm Christian. Even if I smoke weed, I mean I'm Christian, so I have to get baptized like everyone else. After that I really felt really deep back into the drugs. Then at the age of 15 I finally tried some psychedelics, and this was for me personally at this point just great, because I thought to myself, I finally understand like the meaning of life and why we are here, and it's just, for me it was like, oh, now my eyes are open and I see. Yeah. And then I started to take psychedelics in a distance between 1 to 3 months. I didn't take a lot, I take a few times because I never wanted to get high of it. I wanted to learn something from it, because for me it was like some spiritual things, like you can open yourself to the spiritual world with it. At this time I also opened myself like to some hypnosis videos, like some occult things that was like, yeah, a little bit weird, but at this time for me it was I really liked it. So then in this time when I was taking all the LSD in this year when I was taking the LSD and the mushrooms and experimenting with all these things, at one night I had a dream. Like the LSD comes from a plant called the ergot fungus. Also first it was found out from this, and when I was at this age I had a dream in the night from the ergot fungus, and I saw just like a village, and all the people in the village had eaten from the ergot fungus, and when they had eaten from the ergot fungus they just got like demon possessed, and they got crazy. They were like, ah, and couldn't handle themselves. And when I saw that, and it was like for me like, wow, what is going on here? And then at this moment I heard like a voice speaking to me, and this voice said to me, Timon, do you see what this fungus does to these people? And you're taking this drug in little portions for fun to you. What is wrong with you? And at this moment I didn't know that this dream was from God, but I just wake up and was like, whoa, what did I dream right now? But I just was getting back to life, and it was like everything was alright. So I think one or 2 or 3 months after that dream, when me and my friends had taken LSD again, the experience was just totally different to all things that I ever experienced. It was just like in the half of the trip, everything stopped. The trip was just finished. And at that moment, it was like a big dark cloud was entering into my stomach. And fear came up. And I didn't felt any emotions except of fear, and just had like this weird bad feeling. And this weird bad feeling really didn't left me again, you know? It was like, for me personally, it felt like I would have lost my soul. And after the trip, I didn't recognize myself again, because always when I was going out or I was in the train or somewhere else, it just felt like everybody was staring at me and everybody would know that something is wrong with me. And really bad anxiety started to happen after that trip. It was really like when I was in the train, I even had sometimes the fear to get up and walking out of the train, because then everybody's looking at me. It was really like that bad at that point. So then after a half year later, I finally finished with the hypnosis videos and also had taken a break from the psychedelics, and my anxiety started to getting better. I mean, even at that point I felt like this dark cloud in my stomach, but I was getting used to it and it wasn't that big of a problem like at the beginning. And you know, then at this point from life it was like, oh, now I'm feeling better, so why don't take some LSD? So I took LSD again with a friend, and the experience wasn't that bad, and everything was like getting back to normal. But not to normal, but it was like everything was getting better, but I felt this big dark cloud every day in my stomach, but the rest was okay, you know. So a half year later, this was like right before my 17th birthday, a friend of mine that I know from this Christian Camp Rock, was writing me, and she texted me like, hey Timon, do you don't want to come back in this camp? At that point I really was really angry at Christian. Christian were for me like the stupidest people. I couldn't deal with them. Even in my family, I really had problem with them, and they started talking about God and all that stuff. But I thought to myself, hey Timon, why not? Maybe it's good that you go to this camp. So I told my mother that I want to go there, and she signed me up for the camp. So when I right now see back at that moment, I know that God was pulling me to the camp, you know, because I personally would never have said yes to something like this. A week before I was going to the camp, I talked with God and I said to him, yeah, I would be down to start a relationship with him again, but I don't want to quit smoking weed. So then a week later, when I was going to the camp, it's Sunday morning, I I remember like it was yesterday. I was getting up off my bed, and like this big dark cloud that was in my stomach was like getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I felt so angry, and I never felt that bad like at that moment. And I was cursing my mother and was saying to her, why do you force me to go in this camp? But she didn't force me to go to this camp. I mean I personally had chosen to go there. And now I know that this was like a really big spiritual battle, that like the other side, Satan, didn't want me to go there, because because he knew when I will go there I will experience God, and God will change my life. So so then I was going in this camp, and at the first 2 or 3 days it was for me really weird, and was like, oh, what I'm doing here. I mean, look at these people, and you know, like it was like they're a bit weird, and man, I don't know, I'm not sure about the whole thing. But then at one evening, a friend of mine, he's now a really good friend of mine, at this point he wasn't a friend of mine, Elisha, was walking in the room, and the only thing that he said was, wow, Jesus, I just thank you that you're here. And at the moment when he said that, it was for me like, what a weird dude you are. But when he was walking in the room, there was like this big light behind him, and it was just like, it was a really big love entered in the room. And I know that at that moment I thought to myself, if this is God, if this love is God, then I need to know him. So a day after that experience, I told another guy out of my room all the stuff that I did, what drugs I did, how my life was, and everything. And after I told him that, he just looked at me with these joyful eyes, really. His eyes were just like shining, and it was just like, wow, come on, Timon, we're gonna pray you free. And I was like, wait, pray me free? What's wrong with you? And then with him, we were searching one of the leader from the camp. And then we found one of the leader, And then we just were going with one of the leader to the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon is like the room where we had the worship and everything, and there was like this big wooden cross. And then I was going with the leader to this cross. The name of the leader is Lars. So I was going with Lars to the cross, and it was so funny because then he said like, yeah, Timon, you can pray now with me. And I thought, okay, why not? And then he started praying, and he said that I just should repeat what he says. And the first sentence that he made was, now I lay down the weed on the cross. And when he said this sentence, for me personally it was like, man, why do you say something? I really was getting really angry. I thought to myself, how could anybody say something like this? But I still prayed it, but it really made me really, really mad. So after the prayer, after all these things finished, so then after we said that with the weed, I laid down my life to the cross and I laid everything down for Jesus, you know. And after that prayer, I know that now is something really serious, that something really serious happened. Even if when I was praying, I didn't meant it so serious, but I felt like in the spiritual world, now is something really serious going on. So after we prayed that, I really felt bad. I had just all this voice in my head that told to me, Timon, you can come back to Christ. I mean, you grow up as a Christian and you choose yourself to go away from Jesus, so you're cursed, you cannot go back to Jesus. But I didn't believe to these voices, because I thought to myself, no, they are wrong. And I was going back into my room and I opened my Bible, and when I opened my Bible, it was just like, wow, God is speaking directly to me. And I thought to myself, wow, if this is God, if I right now really heard his voice, because I just opened the Bible and I read something and it was like God was speaking directly to me. And I thought to myself, I need to go back home and just search God. I did that and went home. I went home to burn all my stuff that had to do anything with my past life. Esoteric clothes and my drugs. I remember when I went to go up to the fire, God reminded me that I forgot my LSD. It was like this moment, oh yeah, you're right, I had some LSD at my room, so I was going back and I also held that and burned it. So few days after I burned all my stuff, I was sitting in my bed and was just praying and praying and praying. And I remember it so good, like it was yesterday. I was just sitting in my bed, and at one point the presence of God just came into the room like whoosh. For me it was just like, wow, whoa, this is you, Holy Spirit. And this moment just marked my life. Since then I'm never the same. Yeah, God just changed my life through this experience. And this is how I found Christ with 17.